When is the last time you checked in on a partnership or working relationship and asked, are we on the same page? Most leaders skip this question. Most teams avoid it, and most friends assume it. Jonathan shows us why you cannot. Clarity costs nothing, but confusion costs everything. Welcome to the Serving Second podcast, where we celebrate the unsung heroes of leadership. I am Dr. Toussaint Williams, pastor, author, and executive leader, and I'm number one at serving number twos. Every episode, we deal with real tensions. We give real assignments and practical ways to lead with influence when you're not in the top seat. We equip you how to lead where you are and not just where others think you should be. So follow Serving Second wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Serving Second Podcast and you will see us pop up. Best way you can help this show grow is to listen, share it with another second chair leader, subscribe, rate, and comment so that more people can find us here in this community. Welcome to the Serving Second podcast. Let's dive in. We're in scripture. 1 Samuel 20:17 says this, and Jonathan had David reaffirm his oath out of love for him because he loved him as he loved himself. Jonathan did something that many leaders often forget to do. He asked David, his leader, to reaffirm the promise. He wanted clear understanding. He wanted fresh alignment. Not because he doubted David, not because they were at outs, but because pressure changes things. Life changes things. Assignments change. Roles shift. Wise leaders know you cannot move on yesterday's understanding. Jonathan recognized there's power and wisdom in reaffirming where we are. If you notice the context of the text, the moment that they're in is very precarious. David, the anointed one, is running for his life. Saul, the king of Israel, angry that God did not choose him anymore, is now unpredictable. Jonathan is caught between a father he honors and he loves and a brother he knows God has called to be king. The entire relationship is under pressure. Jonathan does not assume David feels the same. He does not assume that they're aligned. He does not assume commitment has remained. So Jonathan asks the question many leaders are afraid to ask. Before we go any further, before we move forward, before we take on another assignment, are we still committed to the same thing? Now, this, family, is maturity. This is what I identify as wisdom. This is emotional intelligence. If you can sit down with your leader, if you can sit down with those people that are on your team and say, hey, are we still moving forward? Are we still on the same page? And this identifies as our first lesson. Alignment must be checked because people change. Alignment must be checked because people change. Goals change. Pressure and difficult situations reveal things that weren't there before, things that could not be seen previously. Because seasons shift and missions evolve, Jonathan understood that leadership is not stagnant. It is dynamic. There are things that happen. There are things that change. And as you leaders, you recognize, hey, life is not static. Jonathan knew loyalty needed clarity. Even though he and David were in covenant, they needed confirmation. This is not weakness. This is understanding that true partnership needs to be clarified every now and again. True partnership requires conversation. In leadership, it is important to have these difficult conversations. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we talked with Pastor Griffin, and he told us the importance of having these difficult conversations. Because in leadership, assumptions create conflict, but clarity creates safety. When you're clear, when your workplace can avoid difficulties and challenges, that allows the mission to move forward. Think about this analogy. If you took your workplace and analyze it for a second, what if you started a project with clear roles? And during the process, the deadlines shift. Someone gets promoted, Another person has to go into the hospital. Somebody else gets into a car accident. Workload shift. Priorities get rearranged. Suddenly, the relationships are a little bit different. They become a little blurry. And if you're anything like me, and if it ever happened on your job like it did on mine, you may have thought you were supporting one thing. And in the midst of all of the confusion and things that happen in life, your leader thinks you're supporting something completely different. Your teammates think they're going one direction and you believe you're going another. And the reality is no one is wrong, but no one is aligned. And all it takes is one conversation. Well, maybe it takes more conversations in this one similar vein. Hey, let's check in. What changed? What needs to happen? How do we get back on the same page? What do we need to do now so that we can continue moving forward? And here in the Bible, Jonathan models this exact behavior. He identifies that, remember, he's not the king. He's not the anointed king. He's simply serving David. And in doing so, he recognized if we're going to move forward, we've got to be on the same page. So here's lesson number 2. For those of you like me who begin thinking things before the conversations happen, I want to affirm the fact that reaffirmation is not insecurity. It's leadership. Jonathan wasn't insecure. Jonathan was still in his rightful position as prince of Israel. He was still the king's son. But he also understood and teaches us the power of clarity. Strong leaders check in. Weak leaders avoid difficult conversations. Strong leaders have conversations about difficult matters. And it is important for us not to assume the health of our organization or the direction we are going because we had this conversation a long time ago. These are regular conversations that have to happen. And so what I want to make sure you understand is that healthy partnerships ask questions before problems arise. As we're moving forward and things are going well, it's important, it's imperative, and it's good business practice as a leader not to be fearful about things, but to simply ask, hey, are we still going in the right direction? Are we still moving in the same path? Are we still in lockstep? And family, one of the things I'm learning is that this is about stewardship. This is about being a wise manager or a wise steward. And Jonathan wanted to protect this relationship by confronting confusion. And let me say that real quick. It's about not dealing with an individual that's going wrong. Let's address the confusion. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. And when we do so, it helps us move forward so that everybody can win. I want to introduce you to one of my favorite historical figures. In fact, I know some of his family members down in Montgomery. His name was Ralph Abernathy. Mr. Abernathy lived this concept in real time. Those who are familiar with the civil rights movement, you know that he walked with Dr. King for decades. They spent time eating together, talking together, planning and strategizing. Together, they led the Montgomery bus boycott. They made sure that as they moved forward, they were moving in the same direction. King and Abernathy planned the Montgomery bus boycott together. They planned marches. They faced death threats. Together, they and several others carried the movement. What most people don't know, what isn't always in the documentaries, is that how often King and Abernathy stopped to realign the direction they were going. The movement changed history. We are living in situations now that would not be possible had King and Abernathy gone forward. But this situation, this movement, the reality of where they were, the challenges and the issues that they dealt with forced the movement to change every month. Because the threats that they faced daily, they had to realign themselves because strategies shifted constantly. They were always checking in with one another. They were always checking on one another. And according to the Martin Luther King Institute at Stanford, Abernathy was the one who kept the mission aligned. Ralph Abernathy was the one who initiated those hard conversations. In the background, not always up front, few of us have heard him give a speech or share a sermon, but Ralph Abernathy asked the difficult questions. He had the challenging conversations. They clarified the direction that they were going. And together, they made sure they were working toward the same outcome. Abernathy wasn't afraid to say, hey, boss, let's check in. Are we still moving in the same direction? Because clarity costs nothing, but confusion would have cost the movement everything. Lesson number 3, clarity protects the relationship. David and Jonathan were in a dangerous season. Trust could not be assumed. Love, the love they had and the support and the respect that they had for one another, did not erase the risk. Role did not erase pressure. Jonathan protected the relationship with one simple action. He asked for clarity. He asked for reaffirmation. He asked for alignment. Clear communication kept this partnership strong. It's not weakness. It's not being mad or angry. Clarity preserves relationships where confusion erodes them. One additional thing that realignment does is it prevents drift. Leaders and associates drift when clarity is missing. Oftentimes, it's not because they disagree. They could be working in the same thing. They could be working on the same thing. They could be moving what they think is in the right direction if they recognize that they're not on the same page. You've seen it in your workplace, and I've seen it in mine. That when clarity is missing, things get challenging. Not always because you disagree, but because you stop talking. Because assumptions replace conversations, because pressure pushes sometimes people into silence, and introverts like me that sometimes rather just kind of keep the peace. Jonathan keeps the partnership strong by confronting this drift. Jonathan checks in. David reassures. Together, they realign. Notice that process. Jonathan checks in. David reassures. Together, they realign. And this is how great partnerships survive pressure. And pressure is going to come in every form and facet of your life. You got to have the conversation. You got to check in. There has to be some type of reaffirmation, and then you can realign. So here, I want to give you a practical step. I want to make sure that we're not just talking theory. Here's what I call the alignment check. It's a simple tool for second chair leaders. 4 simple questions that anybody can utilize when you talk to and talk with those individuals you work with. Here we go. Question number 1. What has changed since we last talked? Question 2. Do we still share the same goal? Question 3. Do we still need the same roles? And question number 4. What do you need from me now? I want to challenge you when you feel alignment drifting to ask your leader these and ask your associates these. Ask your team these 4 questions, and you will be shocked at how much confusion disappears. Because even if you feel like you're going in the right direction, there may be somebody else on your team that may be drifting. It helps you get in line and everyone else to be realigned as well. Our 5th lesson for this episode: pressure requires clarity. Jonathan was in a life and death situation. This was a season that was not all roses. He was literally in a place where he could lose his life. His very dad turned on him because of his love for his friend David. Jonathan was in danger. David was in danger. His dad Saul was unstable, but pressure causes things to be misaligned. It would have been easy for David to react. It would have been easy for Jonathan to get into a corner and pout. It could have been easy to move without checking in. It could have been easy to assume that David felt the same. But Jonathan slows down and asks for clarity. One of my favorite texts, specifically in the Bible, it's one we put around our home and I repeat often. Comes from Psalms 46 and verse 10. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." In these moments of slowing down, in these moments of asking for clarity, it's imperative that we hear from the source of our strength, and also for others that are working with us can be aligned with us. They can understand where we are. In this situation, Jonathan asked for clarity because clarity is the anchor that keeps the relationships from breaking in the midst of storms. Can you imagine with me, Jonathan looking David in the eye? I can see him getting a little bit closer and say, "Hey, David, I need us to lock in." No soldiers, didn't do it in a crowd, no music. I'm not going to make this thing public. David and Jonathan have a moment where they don't deal with anything else except where they're going. They remove the pressure. Just two men, two fellas, two boys, two homies getting together that recognize they have a mission that's greater than themselves. And they ask the question, are we still together? Are we still aligned? This is not weakness. Family, this is leadership. Lesson number 6, and this is the reason why this is so important. Clarity creates stability. Teams work better when roles are clear. Leaders lead better when expectations are clear. Associates support better when the mission is clear. And Jonathan models stability through conversation. Reaffirmation brings peace. Alignment brings focus, and clarity brings strength. So earlier I gave you those 4 questions. I want to give you a script, something that you can use that is even be word for word that you can help align your team together. Here it is. Here is what I understand our mission to be. Here is my role as I see it. Has anything changed? Are we still aligned? And what do you need from me now? Short, simple, direct, and powerful. I want to challenge you to use it weekly, to use it monthly, to use it when seasons shift, when pressure rises. I want to challenge you to utilize this script because I believe it will save relationships. It will buoy teams, and it will align assignments. So here we go. We have an application. We're hearing what happened with David and Jonathan, but we got to make sure this is a part of our daily lives. I want you to have an alignment conversation this week. You can select your leader, find an associate, a partner, somebody that works with you on your team. You can even use it with somebody in your house, your spouse, or even your kids, and ask them the 4 questions. Use the clarity script and reaffirm the relationship, realign the mission. And this is the leadership work that keep partnerships strong. Our prayer is that we ask God to help us communicate clearly. Because it's in communicating clearly we can protect partnerships through conversations. That we ask God to slow us down and realign when pressure gets difficult. But then also to give us the courage to ask for clarity and the humility, family. This is important. Humility to listen and realign. So here's the recap. Jonathan asked David to reaffirm the oath, not because he doubted, but because he was wise. He knew that it was important for them to clarify the relationship. And clarity protects or insulates the relationship. Clarity protects the mission. Clarity strengthens trust. Clarity, family, costs nothing, but confusion costs everything. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you subscribe on YouTube or follow on Instagram at Serving Second. I want to repeat our covenant line, and that is the mission that I serve is bigger than my title. This is the Serving Second podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Toussaint Williams. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to connecting next week. God bless.